Something shifted yesterday. You may not have a name for it yet, but since last night, since sometime around Friday the 13th, something inside you shifted. Not loudly, not with fireworks or obvious signs, more like a lock turning in a door you forgot existed. Mars, the oldest force of action in the sky, pressed itself against the north node of destiny at 8 degrees and 55 minutes of Pisces, with a precision of only 19 arc minutes. That is not a loose alignment, that is a fingerprint, and it landed directly on the point in the zodiac that governs where your life is supposed to go next. Now here is what makes this different from anything you have heard this week. Most readings told you this was coming. I am telling you it already happened. The glass is already in the furnace. And what I need you to understand in the next 22 minutes is not what to expect, but what to do with the heat that is already inside you. 3 things will happen in this video. First, I will show you exactly what Mars left behind when it touched that point, because the mark it made is not symbolic, it is measurable, and your body already knows it, even if your mind has not caught up. Second, I will name the 4 signs that are standing closest to this fire right now: Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius, and I will tell you precisely which room of your life just changed temperature. And third, I will give you a 3-day practice, beginning tonight, that works directly with the energy that is still cooling inside this transit. If you found this video today, within hours of the most precise Mars and North Node conjunction to occur in Pisces since 1840, your timing is not random. Something in you already knew to be here. Stay. Because what the sky wrote on your body yesterday is still wet, and the next 48 hours will determine what shape it takes when it dries. Let me begin with what your body already suspects. Since yesterday morning, since Mars made contact with the North Node at that precise degree in Pisces, something has been different in the way you carry yourself through a room. You may not be able to name it, that is fine. Naming comes later. Right now, I need you to notice where it lives. There is a creature that science has studied for decades and still cannot fully explain: the Pacific salmon. Born in a shallow stream, sometimes no wider than your arm span, this fish leaves its birthplace as a juvenile and enters the open ocean. It travels thousands of miles. It crosses currents that should erase every trace of where it came from. No parent teaches it the route. No elder fish swims beside it. And yet, when the moment arrives, when something deep in its biology says now, it turns around and navigates back. Not to the general area, not to the approximate coast, to the exact stream where it was born, the exact bend in the exact river. Scientists discovered the reason in 2014. Inside the salmon's tissue, embedded in its very nose, are microscopic crystals of a mineral called magnetite. These crystals communicate with the Earth's magnetic field. They form what researchers call an inherited magnetic map, a map that was never learned, a map that was never shown, a map written into the body before the body ever needed it. And here is the part that stopped me. Even salmon that were landlocked for thousands of years, cut off from the ocean for 60 generations, still carried the map. The knowing did not fade. It waited. Now hold that, because what Mars did yesterday at 8 degrees 55 minutes of Pisces is the cosmic equivalent of activating that map. The North Node is not a planet. It is not a rock floating in space. It is a mathematical point, the exact location where the moon's orbit crosses the path of the sun. And in astrology, for thousands of years, it has carried one meaning above all others: direction. The direction your soul is being pulled toward, whether you cooperate or not. When Mars, the planet of action, the planet of impulse and heat and the courage to move before you are ready, lands on that point with a precision of 19 arc minutes, it does not ask your permission. It activates. Like a hand reaching into your chest and turning a dial you did not know was there. And it happened in Pisces. That matters more than most readings have acknowledged this week. Mars is fire. Pisces is water. When fire enters water, it does not burn the way it usually burns. It does something stranger. Think of a glass furnace. The flame inside reaches over 2,000 degrees, but the material it works with is not iron. It is not stone. It is sand, silica, one of the softest, most common substances on the planet. And under that heat, sand does not harden, it melts, it becomes liquid, transparent, shapeable. And in the hands of someone who knows how to breathe into it at the right moment, it becomes glass. That is Mars in Pisces touching your destiny. The fire did not arrive to make you harder, it arrived to make you transparent. To melt the version of you that had become too rigid, too fixed, too committed to a form that no longer fits the direction your life is asking you to grow. And transparency is terrifying because it means people will see what you have been carrying behind the shape you showed them. 4,000 years before any modern astrologer opened a birth chart, the Mesopotamians already understood this. They did not call the red planet Mars, they called it Nergal. And Nergal was not simply a god of war, he was the god who descended. In the oldest surviving version of his myth, carved into clay tablets in ancient Akkad, Nergal falls in love with Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, and to reach her, he must pass through 7 gates. At each gate, he is required to surrender something, a weapon, a piece of armor, a symbol of his power. By the time he reaches the 7th gate, he is stripped bare, and only then, with nothing left to defend himself, does he meet the one he was always meant to meet. Not an enemy, not a punishment, a love that could only recognize him without his armor. The Mesopotamians carved this story not as entertainment. They carved it as instruction, because they understood that the red planet does not always arrive to conquer. Sometimes it arrives to descend. Sometimes the most powerful thing a warrior can do is remove his own armor and walk deeper into what terrifies him. That is not weakness. That is the oldest form of courage the human race has ever named. Mars at 8 degrees Pisces on the North Node is walking through its own gates right now. And the question is not whether you are strong enough for what comes next. The question is whether you are willing to put something down. But this transit is not finished with you yet, because what happened yesterday was only the first exhale into the molten glass. In the next 48 hours, Mercury retrograde will conjoin Mars at this same degree on March the 15th. And then, 2 days after that, Mercury will press itself against the North Node on March the 17th. 3 conjunctions, 3 breaths, each one shaping the glass further before it cools. You are sitting inside a 72-hour window that will not repeat at this precision for decades. The shape is still forming. Nothing has hardened yet. Now let me tell you what this activation left in your body. Because the transit does not only move through the sky, it moves through tissue. If you have felt a heaviness in your lower back over the last 2 days, a warmth or a dull pressure that sits just above the hips and does not seem connected to anything physical, you are not imagining it. Mars in Pisces activates the lumbar region, the kidneys, the body's deep filtration system. The ancients knew this. Nergal was associated not only with war, but with kidney affliction. Your body is filtering something right now, not toxins, timelines, old versions of what you thought your life was supposed to look like. If your dreams over the last 2 nights have involved water, pay very close attention. Not drowning, not panic, but deep water, still water, water you could breathe in, water that held you instead of threatening you. This is the signature of Mars activating the North Node in a water sign. The unconscious mind rehearses what the waking mind is not yet brave enough to face. Your dreams are showing you the depth you are being asked to enter, and the fact that you were not afraid in the dream is the most important detail of all. If you have experienced sudden surges of motivation followed almost immediately by collapse, a burst of clarity that lasts 90 seconds and then dissolves into fog, that is not confusion. That is Mars pushing forward and Mercury retrograde pulling the signal back. The engine is running. The navigation is recalibrating. You are not lost. You are being rerouted. And if there is a pressure in your throat right now, something unspoken sitting just behind your voice, a sentence you almost said to someone yesterday or the day before but swallowed at the last moment, that is the most important sign of all. Because the North Node in Pisces is asking you to speak from a place you have never spoken from before. Not from logic, not from safety, from the place where the magnetite lives, from the inherited map, from the knowing that has no proof but has never once been wrong. That pressure is not anxiety, It is a word trying to be born. And what you do with it before Monday will decide whether you speak it or bury it for another cycle. These are not metaphors. These are the 4 ways this specific transit at this specific degree registers in a human nervous system that is paying attention. And if you recognized yourself in even one of them, then what I am about to tell you about your sign will not surprise you. It will confirm what your body has been whispering since the moment Mars pressed its fingerprint against the axis of your future. Because Mars did not touch every sign the same way, it pressed harder on 4. And the pressure it left is not random, it is architectural. Each sign received it in a different room of their life, and the room determines everything. The first sign standing in the direct heat of this furnace is Pisces. If you were born under Pisces, or if Pisces rises in your chart, Mars touched the North Node in your first house. Your first house is the house of self. Not your job, not your relationships. You. The body you walk in. The face others see before you speak a word. And when the planet of action meets the point of destiny in that house, the message is not subtle. It is a demand to become someone you have never been before, using a courage you were not sure you had. You have spent years shaping yourself around what others needed you to be. Soft where they needed softness, silent where they needed silence, available where they needed availability. And some of that was genuine, but some of it was glass blown into a mold that someone else designed. Mars on your North Node is the moment the mold cracks. Not because you failed, because the glass outgrew it. Over the next 72 hours, you will feel an unfamiliar boldness rising from somewhere beneath your ribs. Do not talk yourself out of it. That boldness is not recklessness. It is the salmon turning toward home. Virgo, you are second. Mars pressed the North Node in your 7th house. The 7th house governs the other, your partner, your closest collaborator, the person who sits across the table from you and reflects back every truth you try to avoid. And here is what no surface reading will tell you. This transit is not about whether that person stays or goes. It is about whether you have been honest about what you actually need from them, not what you have settled for, what you need. There is a version of you that has been maintaining a relationship, a partnership, a dynamic, by keeping your glass perfectly still. No sudden movements, no uncomfortable questions, no renegotiation. You convinced yourself that was patience. But patience breathes. What you have been doing is holding your breath. Mars on the North Node in your 7th house is the first exhale. And when you exhale, the shape of everything between you and that person changes. Not because you broke something, because you finally let the glass move while it was still warm enough to be reshaped. Within the next 3 days, a conversation will surface that you have been postponing. Not about logistics, not about schedules, about the actual architecture of what you share. You did not postpone it because the timing was wrong. You postponed it because you already knew what it would require you to admit. Gemini, the furnace reached your 10th house. The 10th house is the peak of the chart. It is your career, your calling, the thing people associate with your name when you are not in the room. And Mars meeting the North Node here means your professional direction just received a pulse of energy so precise it will feel less like inspiration and more like a correction, as if someone adjusted the lens on a camera you have been looking through for years, and suddenly the image is sharper than you expected. Sharper and less comfortable. You have been building something, but building and belonging are different. You can construct a career that looks exactly like success and still feel like a stranger inside it every single morning. Gemini, Mars on the node in your 10th house is not asking you to quit. It is asking you to stop pretending that what you are building is what you actually want to live inside. Because the form has been cooling around a design that was never yours, and the heat that arrived yesterday is your last window to reshape it before it sets. Pay attention to what irritates you at work between now and Sunday morning. Not the small frustrations, the deep one. The one you have stopped mentioning because mentioning it felt pointless. That irritation is not burnout. It is your North Node knocking from inside the glass. And then there is Sagittarius. Mars and the North Node landed in your 4th house. The 4th house is the root, the foundation, home, not as an address but as an emotional architecture. Family not as a list of names but as a gravity field that has shaped every decision you have ever made, whether you recognized its pull or not. This is the quietest of the 4 activations, and for that reason it is the most dangerous to ignore. Because the 4th house does not shout, it hums. It sits beneath your daily life like groundwater, invisible until someone digs. And Mars just started digging. You may not hear the shovel, but you feel the ground shifting under your feet. Something about the way you relate to home, to safety, to the voice of a parent that still echoes inside your chest even when you are decades past childhood, is being restructured from the roots. You may have noticed it as a sudden restlessness in your own living space. A room that felt fine last week now feels wrong. A routine that comforted you for years suddenly feels like a cage. Sagittarius, you are the archer. You aim outward. You seek the horizon. You have always believed that freedom lives somewhere ahead of you, somewhere you have not yet reached. But the North Node in your 4th house is telling you that the most important journey of this transit is not a departure. It is a descent, down into the foundation, down into what you built your freedom on top of. Because if the base was poured around a fear you never examined, everything above it has been leaning. And what leans, eventually, falls. The next 3 days will bring a memory, not a dramatic one, a small one, a kitchen table, a phrase someone said to you before you were old enough to question it, a rule you absorbed so early it became invisible. When it surfaces, do not dismiss it. That memory is the 7th gate, and what you surrender there will determine the shape of what you build next. Now that you know which room the fire entered, I need to give you something to do with it. Because awareness without action is molten material left in the furnace too long. It loses form. It collapses back into liquid, and you have to start over. This is a 3-day practice. It begins tonight, and it is built around the one element this transit is begging you to work with: water. Not fire, not earth, the element that takes the shape of whatever holds it. Tonight, before you sleep, fill a clear vessel with water. Hold it in both hands. Do not drink it yet. Close your eyes and ask yourself one question, not out loud, silently. What am I being asked to release so the new shape can form? Do not force an answer. Hold the glass for 60 seconds, then drink it slowly. That water carries your question into your body. Let sleep do the rest. Tomorrow, March the 15th, Mercury retrograde conjoins Mars. This is the day of the voice. Find 3 minutes alone. Stand near running water if you can. A faucet is enough, a stream is better, and say out loud, in your full speaking voice, not a whisper, the sentence that has been trapped behind your throat, the one you identified earlier. You do not need to say it to another person yet. Say it to the water. Let the sound leave your body. Let the water carry the vibration before your courage has to. On March the 16th, do nothing. I mean that. No journaling, no meditating, no processing. This is the day the glass cools. Stillness is what holds the form. What you breathed into the last 2 days needs 24 hours of quiet to solidify. If a conversation finds you on this day, let it come, but do not chase one. Observe what arrives without your effort. Trust the temperature. What was meant to reach you will not need your help to find you. And here is why this 3-day window matters more than any single ritual could. What cools inside this 72 hours is not just an intention, it is a direction. The inherited map is not asking you to see the whole route. It is asking you to feel the first turn. And the first turn, for all 4 signs, happens in the body before it happens in the mind. You are not the same person who pressed play on this video, and I do not say that lightly. Something in the way you listened, in the places where your breath changed, in the sign that made your chest tighten, has already begun to set. The glass is finding its form. And that settling is not the absence of fire, it is the fire's final act of faith. The belief that what was shaped in the heat will hold when the world touches it. Most people are not afraid of change. They are afraid of being seen in the middle of it, before the new form has hardened, before they can explain what they are becoming. That is where you are right now. And that is the bravest place a human being can stand, not at the finish line, at the kiln door waiting to see if what they shaped will survive the cooling. The salmon does not wait until it understands the map. It swims. And somewhere between the open ocean and the stream where it was born, The direction becomes the body. The knowing becomes the breath. You do not need to see the whole river. You only need to feel the turn. This glass was not melted quickly. The degrees were measured. The ancient calendars were consulted. The conjunctions were traced across centuries before this video reached you. If the warmth of this furnace found the place it needed to find, let it travel. One mark from you carries this signal to someone whose glass is still cold tonight and who needs to know that the fire is real. Right below the one thing you are releasing so the new form can emerge, not the safe version, the one that changed your breathing when you named it. Your words become a fingerprint beside mine, and the next person who reads them may find the nerve to name their own. Subscribe and turn on the bell. The furnace does not go dark between sessions. The sky is already preparing the next flame, and you will want to be standing near the heat when it arrives. The universe has spoken. What comes next is in your hands.